welcome to Rusty Studio again. Today's video is going to be a fun one. I'm going to be dividing this video in two sections. The first section is how to set up Unity to create our own custom device in the device simulator and to understand how to make them. In the second section, we're going to be building from scratch our own device for the simulator, and we're going to be making the Google Pixel 5. Currently, by the time I was doing this video, it's not out on the market yet. So let's begin. So we are going to start off by preparing Unity to know where our custom files for these custom devices are going to be. First off, you need to have the device simulator package installed on Unity. If you don't have it, all you have to do is just go to Windows, Package Manager. Make sure that in the Advanced tab, you have checkmark Show Preview Packages. All you have to do now is on the search bar, just type Device Simulator, install it, and you're good to go. Now we just need to tell Unity where these custom files are going to be storing. So let us go to Edit, Preference. In the Device Simulator, where is the directory, hit Browse. I'm gonna be saving mine in the desktop, so I'm gonna make a new folder. I'm gonna put it Unity Custom Devices. I'm gonna open that folder up, hit Select Folder, and we're done. So now that we set up Unity to know where our files are gonna be, how do we create these files in order to make our own custom device? In this case, I'm gonna be using Visual Studio. You can use Visual Code if you want. So let me just look for Visual Studio. I'm gonna open it. We're gonna tell Visual Studio to open up the folder that we just created. Open folder. Mine, if I'm not mistaken, is on the desktop. I'm gonna select it, select folder. Okay, I'm gonna put Unity and Visual Studio together side by side. Okay, now this file is a JSON file, but additionally it needs to have two very important extensions in order to work. So let us create this file. Hit File, let's go to New, File, select Text File, double click it. Now, in my case, I'm gonna hit Ctrl S to save it. I'm gonna be saving it in the folder that we created, Unity Custom Devices. Now, I can name this file whatever I want. So I'm gonna name it My Custom Device. Now, these are the two extensions that we need. So .device.json. If you're in Visual Studio, in Save As Type, you need to put all files. If you're using Visual Code, all you need to do is just name your file .device, and in the Save As Type, put JSON to save it with the extension. So in this case, we're in Visual Studio. You need to put your two extensions, Save As Type all files, hit Save. And now we just created the file that we need. Now that we created the JSON file, what kind of information we need in order to represent our device in the simulator? Now, if we go to Unity's documentation for the device package, you know, Unity, here we go. If we go to the manual for the device simulator package, we're gonna giving a small introduction. There's a section called Adding Custom Devices. Let us go straight there. It's gonna be telling us what we just did, how to prepare Unity to look for a folder, how to save our files with the two extension, and here is giving you the class that the JSON file is going to be communicating. Let us go straight down. We're going for the one that says complete device. It's gonna give us a quick example of what is inside a JSON file to be able to simulate a device. In this example, it's showing us how to simulate an iPhone XR. So let's copy all this, hit the top bracket and copy all the way down. Let's go to Visual Studio, paste it, and we save it. Now, how do we know that what we have done is actually working? If we go straight to Unity, in the Game tab, let us there's a selection, additional selection. Here it says Game, press it, and we're going straight to Simulator. We're curious if the one that we actually made, Unity actually sees it. So let's go to the list, type Apple iPhone XR. Now we're seeing two iPhone XR. Why? Because when you install the device simulator package, Unity already gives you a wide variety of devices, and we're actually making a similar one that is already on the package, so hence the reason why it's showing two. But how can we know that the one that we actually made is on the list? So if we go to the JSON file in the section friendly name, that's the name is going to appear on the list. All we have to do is just put something different in order to different between them. So let's put underscore my device, save it. Let's refresh the simulator, or you have to just change between the game and the simulator tab. Let us type Apple iPhone XR. This is our custom device. Hit it. And if you have this square thingy that even though it doesn't look like an iPhone, your JSON file is actually working. But you may be wondering why it doesn't look like an iPhone XR. So this is the tedious part in creating your own custom device in the device simulator. We can actually find this information that we need to create the device, but the image itself, we actually have to create it ourselves also. If we go back to the JSON file in Visual Studio and we go straight down, there is something called presentation, and in the overlay path it's looking for the image that is gonna represent the device itself, and it's looking for the iPhone 11 overlay PNG. So we don't have this image because we haven't made it yet. For every custom device that you make, you need to create this picture. In this case, since we already have the iPhone XR inside the Unity package, we can actually cheat ourselves. In this case, we can actually copy the image that Unity has and we can put it in our folder. So how do I do that? Back to Unity, go straight to the project tab, right click and select showing folder. We're inside our Unity project structure, so hit library, package cache. Let's go to device simulator. Select the device definition folder, and in this folder we have all the devices that Unity provided us for the simulator. We're looking for the iPhone 11 overlay picture. So here we go, Apple iPhone 11 overlay. So all we have to do is just copy it. Let us find the folder that we created for our custom files, paste it. Let's go back to Unity for the simulator, and done. We're actually in our custom file in the XR My Device, and we just copy the picture and here we have it. It's looking like an iPhone already. So now that we already set up Unity for the custom devices, we already created our own file to store the information for our custom devices. What do we actually need in order to create our own custom device? So in this section, bear with me, we're actually going to start playing around with this JSON file in order to understand it. What do we actually have in this JSON file? So let us little by little and to understand it. So as you may know, the friendly name is the name is going to be appearing on the list in the simulator. And in the version, following the structure of the other JSON file, normally you're going to see number 1 on it. So just put number 1. Now on the screen, it's going to ask you some specific details, hardware specific detail for the screen itself. Is going to ask you for the width of the phone, the height, not the phone itself, just the width and the height of the screen. It's going to ask you if it has a navigation bar height. So the navigation bar is actually the bar that's in some phone is on top of the screen, which holds the speaker and the camera. There's an example, the Google Pixel 4 actually has this navigation bar. So that's what you mean. Do not confuse it with phones like the iPhone that has this notch. If you see this notch itself, in a way, belongs to the screen. It's not a navigation bar itself. Now we have the DPI of the screen. Now we jump for the orientation. So just before jumping to the orientation part, how do we get this information of the phone? This information, you can actually Google it, and it's going to be appearing very fast when you look for these devices in the specs information. Just let us hop to Google. And let me type iPhone XR specs. So here we have it. So I'll give you a quick look. Here in the spec of display, if we compare the information, it's the same one that we have in the JSON file. We have the width of the screen, which is 828. We have it right here. The height 1792. We have it here. The DPI, and here's DPI, somehow here is PPI, so it's 326. So we're good to go. This is actually the most easiest information you're gonna find if you're making your custom device. So just a quick Google search and you're good to go. So we're in the orientation section. The orientation section, here we're going to be telling inside the JSON file how the safe area and the cutout is going to behave depending on the orientation that I put my phone. If you notice here in Unity, every time I rotate my phone to either portrait mode or landscape, the size of the safe area actually changes. Now this is actually, you can actually do this by the information you put on the orientation. Now if we start from top to bottom, each orientation will have its own ID, and here the safe area, you're going to play around with the size and the positioning. Now what is the safe area exactly? The safe area is this green line you see here. You can actually toggle it on or off here in the simulator. Now visually it's gonna help you know where you're gonna place your UIs on your scene, that neither a notch or a camera punch hole is gonna bother you in your UI, or in the situation that the screen is not square like, there's some phone that has some edge on the screen where you're gonna put your UIs, and this will not be affected by it. This is like a visual help. Programming itself, it doesn't do nothing, but visually it helps you place your UI on any device. So with this, how do I know that orientation 1 is actually portrait mode? So if we play around with numbers with the width and the height and the position of the safe area, all you have to do, well, what I did was just place the number 1 on the width, save it. Let us refresh Unity. And as we can see, we alter the width of the safe area in orientation 1. This confirms that orientation 1 is actually portrait. So if we go to the other orientation, landscape right, as we can see, it's now being altered. Like this. Let's remove the number 1 again. Let's refresh this so we'll have everything nice and pretty. Now, we're now in the cutout section. What is exactly the cutout? Well, the cutout is actually the area of the screen that will not be functional. The easiest way to actually have it in your mind, the cutout is a section of the screen that would not actually work either with touch input or any UI input. These usually be represented by either the notch section of an iPhone device or the section of the camera when it's just a little hole. Visually, we don't have a representation about the cutout, but what I did was I just put the safe area, the cutout detail, the X and the Y in the safe area to be able to know exactly the size and the positioning of this cutout. So copy the X, the Y, the width and the height of the cutout. Okay, my bad. Copy it and place it in the X and Y on the width. Okay. Save it. Let's refresh this. And as you can see, in this particular phone, the iPhone, this cutout width and height and positioning of the X and Y, it's telling us that the cutout, the section on the screen that is gonna not be working, is actually the notch on the phone. Normally when I'm creating my custom device, this is the first thing that I actually do. I just leave the safe area and play around first with the cutout, paste the information in the cutout section, and then I put my safe area back. So let me just put everything as it is. Let me save it. Refresh here. And we're back to normal. So by playing around with orientation 1, we already know that this is portrait mode. You can also play around with the 3 and the number 4, which represents the other orientation. So I'm gonna do this with you. Orientation 3, I'm gonna put a number 1 in the height. I'm gonna refresh here. Let me rotate. And orientation 3 belongs to landscape left. Now that we have the basic understanding about the orientation here in the JSON file, let us go straight down for the presentation part. As we already discussed it, the presentation part is, especially overlay path, is looking for the picture that's gonna represent the device. So like I said before, this is the tedious part when creating your custom device, because you actually need to create this picture and then you have to play around what is called the border size in order to make it fit for the screen size in the simulator. Now, this border size will depend on the size of the image itself. Now, before explaining that detail, let me explain what is actually the border size. The border size is the positioning and the size of the image to make it fit for the screen here on the simulator. So if we play around with the X and the Y, I'm gonna just put a number 10. Before the 5 here on the X, I'm gonna save it. Refresh the simulator. And as we can tell, the X itself is stretch the image to the left side of the screen. So it's telling us that we're actually playing around with these numbers in order to make it fit, especially for the screen size. So if we take the image that we actually copied from the simulator, the iPhone 11 overlay, I'm gonna go straight to my folder. Let us open this image. And if I'm on Windows 10, I'm just gonna right click the image and file info. So here we can see that the dimension or how the image was saved was by 930 by 1894. And if we go straight up in our JSON file, the width and the height is actually less than that, but by making the image a little more bigger and more bigger and over the numbers that the width and the height of the device, this allows us to play around with the border size without altering too much of the image. If we actually make this image small and we actually need to stretch it out, it's not gonna look okay. It's not going to look pretty on the simulator section. Let us jump to the system information about the device. So here's gonna be asking small hardware details of the device. In the iPhone 11, it's gonna ask you about the device model, so you're gonna put iPhone 11 or any model information that you want. The device type, like I said before, in the other JSON file normally is number 1, just place number 1. The operating system that is currently running on the device, which is in this case iOS 14. The operating system family, just put 0. Here is asking how many core processors inside the CPU. Here is number 6 with a nice Google search and Wikipedia or specs depending on the chip that is running. The chip that is running on the device, this can actually change, so you actually need to actually Google search it. So the processor frequency, mostly is 0. Come from this later for the iPhone. All processors either running in the iPhone or Android, the type is ARM64. Now in this section, the accelerometer, the audio, the gyroscope, location service, and vibration, all of it is true. All of phones on the market actually support these details. So this is mostly the GPS or the tilting or the moving of the device. All of this is true. Now here I have my doubts. I don't know when it's asking the system memory size, is asking the frequency of the CPU or the actual size inside the device. So once I have this figured out, I'm going to share it with you. So unsupported identifier, nothing. Now all of this information, normally it doesn't do nothing on the simulator. This is actually just string information, because for example, if I go here where it says device specification, it says the iOS 12, CPU ARM64, the GPU is in Apple, but if I want to, sorry Apple, put Android here, I shall save it, refresh, and we can see here it's actually changing the information about the operating system. So this is a string information. So let us go back again, sorry Apple, iOS 14. Just save it here and refresh it before. Now, here is the part that I am struggling to understand. Hence the reason the title of this video is how to help you visualize your device in the simulator, because in this section, the graphics dependent data is asking specific details of the CPU/GPU of any device. This information, by as long as I can search on the internet, I cannot find a specific documentation either for the CPU documentation or GPU documentation, depending on what is running on the device. I cannot find this type of information. Now, this information actually is from what is running is very specific for each and every chip inside the device. In this situation, we have the iPhone 11, so it's running the A12 chip inside the phone. So everything related here is about that chip in particular. So it's a support raw, shadow, motion vector, 3D texture, 2D array texture, all of this. I do not know if I can copy this information for every JSON file I do, because since this information is directly specifying the type of chip that is running on the device, and every time a new device comes out, the chip inside actually changes. So the iPhone 11, they came out with the A12 chip, so the iPhone 12 came up with another chip. So all of this information actually changes depending on the chip that is running inside the phone. Now, I already asked on forum and everything, where do I get this type of information? Once I know how to get this type of information on a particular device, I'm gonna share with you guys. But technically speaking, if we want to visualize our device in the simulator, we don't need this type of information. I'm just going to delete this, save it. Let me refresh this. So as you may notice, we still can see how our game or scene is gonna visually be representative inside the iPhone XR. The only detail is that we don't have the information about the GPU that is running on the device. Now we're only gonna have this type of error, that graphic device type, the game will fail to launch. It is because the simulator actually helps us to know how our game is gonna look on the device, but it's also gonna allow us to see how our game is gonna perform on the device. So if you don't have this type of details for your device, just don't worry, focus visually how it's gonna look on the device, and later, once that I have this information, I'm gonna share with you guys. But you can actually play around with your game visually and without this information. So just make sure that you don't run your play in the simulator. If you don't have this, I don't know how it's gonna perform. Mostly I perform my devices well. I think it's gonna depend if your game is very high-end graphic style, but if you want to visually see your game on the device, so you don't need this type of information. So now we understand how everything is running, the screen size, the rotation, the safe area, the cutouts. We already know about the presentation, and we already know about the system information that we need to have in order to create a custom device. Now we're entering the other fun part of the video, that we are going to be creating our own custom device from scratch, which is the Google Pixel 5. So let's get right to it.